So right now you might be experiencing a lot of repeating patterns, a lot of emotions, a lot of things that are just rising up out of nowhere. And they might be making you feel like you did at a point where you were going through maybe a trauma or a level of fear or an insecurity or things that have happened in this lifetime, and they're being brought up to the surface. You're becoming made aware of them. And that is one of the things about awakening and spiritual awakening, is that the feelings and the emotions that we go through and the energies that we feel intensify a lot. And that's where people tend to have difficulty with it, because they don't know how to deal with the emotion. They don't know how to sort of sit with it and be with it and understand it, and know where it's coming from. But eventually, over time, you will start to know where it comes from. It may take years, it may take a long time for you to get through the loops and the cycles. It's just part of the process. Um, I've always had this thing with me where I procrastinate really, really badly. And I'm wasting energy just by procrastinating. And the reason why we procrastinate and think too much is there's a level of fear. The majority of stuff goes back to fear. Goes back to your root chakra, goes back to your grounding, your stability, where you are in life, what people might think of you, and all that sort of stuff. And again, when you look at the layers of that, a lot of that comes from childhood, or it comes from something that's happened within your early life, usually because they're your formative years. That's what creates you and makes you the way that you are. And and for me, that's something that's been kind of coming up quite a lot lately. And so here's a little bit of advice of how to sort of understand and integrate what you're going through and what you're feeling, if you're new to all this. If you've got your own system, then that's fine. Just stick with what works for you. um, or maybe try this as an alternative. So all this stuff was coming up for me a few weeks ago now, and it was this fear, procrastination. I'm like, well, what's this procrastination all about? So I sat with it, and I closed my eyes and I just sat with it, and I was like, okay, just procrastination. Tell me what you're about. Tell me where you're coming from. What's the reason for it? And then a few minutes had passed, and I just sat there, and there was this fear feeling came through. You feel fear. You feel most of the emotions that come through. You'll feel them in your gut. You'll feel them in your solar plexus chakra, and then it will move up into the energy through your body for you to be able to then speak about it and express it of what it actually is. Um, so I was like, okay, so fear. So what have I got to be fearful of? What is it within this fear that's making me procrastinate? And for me, it was going back to childhood. It was going back to when I was at school, and the head teacher that was there, and she was kind of just quite abusive and not very nice, and so that kind of stuck with me. And it always felt as though I was the one being kind of like pointed out. And so yeah, so that stuck with me a little bit. So that remained in my kind of identity, that you know I was being pointed at all the time. Oh, look what he's doing. He's daft. And that is a replay that happens throughout childhood, throughout school. That there will be something that comes up, and that is an energy form or energy wave that then becomes stuck in your field. And as you're going through the healing process, you're going through the awakening, you're going through the energy work of understanding who you are, where you are, why you are, and going into past lives, and all this other wonderful stuff that we can work with. More of this stuff unfolds, more of it comes up, and that's what came up for me the other week. So I was sat with it, and I was like, okay, so that's where that's actually come from. So that's my process. That's how I do it. So I'll sit with it. I'll listen to it and actually speak to it. Actually speak to it and speak to, if it's a feeling or if it's an emotion in the body or if it's a pain, speak to it. Speak to your body, speak to the pain, speak to the emotion, and you will get a response and you will get a message from it. Your body will speak to you, but you have to be you have to be really in tune. If you're like a hairy ass bricklayer, you're probably not going to do any sort of thing like this because you're so like stuck in your masculinity rather than wanting to come into your divine energy of harmony. Um, but if you are a hairy ass bricklayer and you are in harmony harmony with your masculinity, then good, kudos to you. So yeah, sit with it, speak to it, listen to it. But you will always find that there will be another overriding feeling that will rise up from that. So for me, initially it was the fear. I was like, okay, so where's this fear coming from? It was like the ridicule, it was the being pointed at, like all that sort of stuff, and being picked out, and and the head teacher, the school. And then it made me realize and remember a lot of stuff that happened through school. So a lot of other memories start to churn up. So once you start to cling on to one, think of it as kind of like a string with all little knots in, and you unpick one knot, and then you become aware of another knot, and that starts to unravel and unpick itself anyway, because you've now connected to the energy internally, and you're aware of it. Once you become aware of it and you know what it's doing and why it's there and what it's making you feel, it starts to automatically unravel itself. And then you may go through a few days where you just feel like exhausted. You might feel drained. You might feel tired. You might be a bit uh, just like grumpy in yourself. You might just feel a little bit out of sorts. That's fine. That's the body's way of dealing with stuck energy. Because it's a bit like, if you just think of your body and your mind and your nervous system, think of it as a muscle, because your brain is a muscle. And when you pull a muscle, you're in pain, right? And you can feel it in the body. And you get cramps and it's there and it's just like, I can't, I can't deal with it. Oh, it's so painful, yada yada, and all that sort of stuff, all that stuff, the negative thinking comes behind it because you are in pain, you're in physical pain. um, and it's exactly the same, but this is like emotional pain, and it's just that it's something that you're holding on to. It's that tension internally. So the more in tune you become with your own energy of who you are, where you are, why you are, the various feelings, emotions, things that you've been through, as you're on this ascension journey, on this awakening journey, you're connecting to your spiritual energy, connecting to spiritual growth, all of this stuff will come up, and it's a natural process. It's a natural process to go through all this stuff, because if we didn't, we'd still be stuck where we were. So you can either become aware of it and heal it and deal with it, or you can just be locked in the form that you were before, previously, in that identity of just being, no, no, everything's okay, everything's fine, you know. But one day it'll be like, blam, you got to deal with it. You got to deal with it. And emotional pain and things that we lock down, it takes, because it's more energetic. And I always say this to Reiki clients and, well, any energy clients that I work with, that because we're working on the energy, the physical is the last part that needs healing, because you need to sort the mind out. Once you sort the mind out, then everything else will start to fall into place. And it's exactly the same with the energy of emotions, dealing with emotions and healing the emotions, because it's an energy wave and an energy form that is trapped internally. That will eventually start to unravel, and you will feel things within your body start to improve, start to shift. It might just be a general outlook. You might feel like you might just feel like you're physically in better shape. You might just have better health overall. Because the other thing as well is, when you're dealing with this stuff, your overall health does improve. Your immune system develops, because you're not holding on to tension and stress and emotion, keeping everything trapped in. You can just let it out and let it go, let it expand. If you carry, if you carry a shoebox full of like all your stuff that you've carried around in life in a shoebox, and you carry it around for 30 years, it's going to become very heavy. And that heaviness is what we're carrying. So we've got to use the metaphor and just drop the shoebox and let it go. Let the things fall where they need to fall and deal with them one step at a time, one thing at a time. Don't think of it as like, oh my god, look at all this shit that I got to sort out. One step at a time. And that is probably the best advice I can give, especially with doing my own healing of what I've been going through since 2000s, whenever it was. It seems such a long time ago now, but mental health, and that's what got me started on this path. And bam, everything just sort of like switched on. The lights came on. I was just like, oh, okay, this is what's really going on, and we're all just stuck in the mind. So yeah, awakening, ascension. I also do packages and healing packages on my website. So if you're interested in working alongside with me, then do get in touch or drop me a message. But yeah, I hope this helps somebody.